I spent 18 years raising Emma alone after losing my wife during childbirth. We were inseparable from her first steps to her college graduation. When she announced her engagement to Tyler, I was thrilled to walk her down the aisle. I had saved for her dream wedding since she was a baby. Never did I imagine that after paying for everything my own daughter would tell me, I was not welcome at her wedding. The look in her eyes when she banned me broke something inside me that I never knew could break. Before I tell you what drove me to make the hardest decision of my life, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more stories about the unexpected turns family relationships can take. Life changes in unexpected ways. Mine changed forever when I became both mother and father to Emma in a single day. At 38, I run a successful construction company in Denver, but building that business was nothing compared to raising my daughter alone. I still remember holding Emma for the first time in the hospital, my joy mixed with devastating grief as doctors tried to save my wife, Catherine. Before she slipped away, Catherine made me promise to give our daughter everything we had planned together. That promise became my life mission. Despite long hours managing construction sites, I never missed Emma's important moments. When she performed as the lead in her third-grade play, I arrived straight from work, still covered in drywall dust, but beaming with pride from the front row. For her high school soccer championships, I rescheduled major client meetings. My crew often joked that Emma was the real boss of our company. Our most sacred tradition was Sunday breakfast at Millie's Diner. From the time Emma could sit in a high chair, we claimed the same corner booth every week. The staff knew our order by heart: chocolate chip pancakes for her black coffee and the Western omelet for me. Those breakfasts were our sanctuary, where we discussed everything from school bullies to her first heartbreak at 16. When Catherine's parents moved to Arizona for retirement, we made sure to visit twice a year. They adored Emma, always saying she had her mother's smile and my stubborn determination. They became Emma's connection to the mother she never knew. Financial stability came slowly. I took every job available, working weekends and holidays to build my reputation. By the time Emma reached high school, my company had grown enough to hire a full crew. Still, I saved aggressively, knowing college costs would be substantial. I wanted Emma to attend whatever school she chose, without debt hanging over her. She earned a scholarship to Northwestern University, but I still covered her housing, books, and spending money. Every penny felt worthwhile when she graduated with honors in marketing. Standing in the audience, watching her accept her diploma, I felt Catherine would have been so proud. 2 years ago, Emma introduced me to Tyler during one of our Sunday breakfasts. He seemed respectful enough, a marketing executive at a local firm where Emma had started working after college. He shook my hand firmly and asked thoughtful questions about my business. I appreciated how he appeared to genuinely listen when Emma spoke about her work projects. 6 months into their relationship, Tyler called asking to meet privately. Over lunch, he formally asked for my blessing to propose to Emma. The gesture impressed me, and I gladly gave my approval, even sharing Catherine's mother's ring that I had saved for this moment. Emma burst into our next Sunday breakfast, flashing the ring, unable to contain her excitement. I immediately promised to pay for the entire wedding. "Dad, you do not have to do that," she protested, but her eyes shone with happiness. "I have been saving for this day since you were in diapers," I told her. "Your mom and I always planned to give you the perfect wedding. Let me do this." She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You will stand right next to me at the altar," she promised. The wedding planning started enthusiastically. We toured 5 venues before Emma fell in love with Ridgecrest Lodge, a stunning mountain retreat with panoramic views of the Rockies. I wrote the deposit check without hesitation, even when the venue coordinator mentioned it was their premium package. The first sign of trouble came during a menu tasting. Tyler insisted on upgrading to the imported champagne that cost 3 times more than the standard option. "It is just one day," I said reasonably. "Does anyone really notice the difference?" "People will remember a cheap wedding," Tyler replied coolly. "Emma deserves the best." I noticed Emma shifting uncomfortably, but nodding in agreement. The Emma I knew would have laughed, and said she could not tell the difference between champagnes if her life depended on it. Our Sunday breakfasts became less frequent. First, Emma canceled 2 weeks in a row due to brunch with Tyler's family. Then she suggested meeting bi-weekly instead of weekly, because wedding planning was taking so much time. When we did meet, Tyler often accompanied her dominating conversations with stories about his latest work triumph or his family's connections. One particularly unsettling Sunday, Emma announced they had decided against inviting children to the wedding, including my sister's kids, whom Emma had always adored. When I questioned this, Tyler quickly interjected that sophisticated weddings were adults only. Emma nodded along, though I caught a flicker of regret in her eyes. The first major argument erupted when Emma mentioned changing her last name, not just to Tyler's, but removing my name entirely. "Your mother would have wanted you to keep our family name in some form," I said, genuinely hurt. "Tyler thinks hyphenated names sound unprofessional," Emma replied, as if that settled everything. When I tried to speak with her alone after dinner, she checked her phone and said Tyler was waiting. "We will talk later, Dad," she promised. Later never came. The wedding invitations arrived for my approval, 3 months before the big day. As I flipped through the sample, my heart sank noticing Catherine's parents were not on the guest list. Neither was my brother, who had been like a second father to Emma. "There must be a mistake with the guest list," I said when I called Emma. "Actually, we had to make some cuts," she replied. "Tyler has so many business associates who need to be there, but these are your grandparents, Emma. Your mother's parents. They live so far away, Dad. They probably would not come anyway." Her dismissive tone stunned me. These were the grandparents who had flown to every graduation despite their age and health issues. When I visited Emma's apartment to discuss it further, Tyler was there inserting himself into our conversation. "The venue has strict capacity limits," he explained in a condescending tone. "My parents have already invited several family friends who are very important for networking purposes." I noticed how Emma deferred to him, her eyes constantly seeking his approval before speaking. This was not the confident daughter I raised. The situation worsened when bills started arriving for services I had never approved. A string quartet for the ceremony when we had agreed on a pianist. Custom-engraved champagne flutes for 200 guests. A designer wedding cake that cost more than my first car. "I thought we agreed on a budget," I said during a rare moment alone with Emma. "Tyler says you only get married once," she replied. "He wants everything to be perfect." Perfect apparently meant expensive. The original budget had nearly doubled. An unexpected encounter at a local business lunch provided disturbing insight. I happened to sit next to Mark, who introduced himself as Tyler's former colleague. After a few drinks, Mark mentioned Tyler's reputation for living beyond his means and pursuing relationships with financially beneficial outcomes. "The guy had to leave our firm because of an accounting discrepancy," Mark confided. "Nothing they could prove, but numbers do not lie." This conversation troubled me deeply, but when I gently tried to ask Emma about Tyler's financial situation, she became defensive. "Not everyone wants to work in construction, Dad," she snapped. "Some people have careers with actual prestige." Her words cut deep. My construction business had put food on our table and paid for her education. She had once proudly given school presentations about her father's company. The situation reached a breaking point during a dinner with Tyler's parents at an extravagant restaurant. His father, a corporate attorney, spent the evening making subtle digs about people without college degrees. Tyler laughed along, adding that he was helping Emma move in more sophisticated circles. Instead of defending me, Emma smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. The daughter who once proudly told her teachers that her dad built the new library was now embarrassed by my work-calloused hands. After dinner, I tried one last time to speak with Emma, privately expressing concern about how Tyler seemed to be isolating her from family. "You just do not understand our relationship," she said sharply. "Tyler is helping me grow. Maybe you should look at why you are so resistant to change." Everything fell apart at the final venue walkthrough. I arrived to find not only Emma and Tyler, but also Tyler's parents. The venue coordinator greeted us warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson," she said to Tyler's parents. "Thank you again for your generous contribution to the bar upgrade." I looked at them in confusion. "I am covering all the wedding costs," I clarified. An uncomfortable silence followed before Tyler's father said smoothly, "We wanted to add a few special touches. Later, while checking table arrangements, I overheard the wedding planner thanking Tyler for his family's generous support. It became clear that Tyler had been taking credit for financing the wedding. When I confronted Emma privately, her reaction shocked me to my core. "Dad, we need to talk about the ceremony," she said, unable to meet my eyes. "What about it? Tyler and I have been discussing it, and we think it might be best if you just attend as a guest." "What are you talking about? I am walking you down the aisle." She finally looked up, her expression disturbingly cold. "The thing is, Dad, you do not really fit the aesthetic we are going for." "Aesthetic," I repeated, stunned. "Your limp from the construction accident last year? It would make the procession awkward. And honestly, your style is not really what we envisioned for the wedding photos." I stood there, unable to process her words. The limp she referenced was from a scaffolding collapse where I had broken my leg, saving one of my workers. Tyler joined us, placing his arm possessively around Emma. "We still want you to contribute financially, of course," he added, as if offering a generous compromise. "But the ceremony would flow better with Emma walking alone." "You want me to pay for a wedding I cannot fully participate in?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. "If you cannot accept our decision," Emma said, her voice hardening, "then maybe you should not come at all." I searched her face for any sign of the daughter I raised, but found only a stranger. Without another word, I walked out Emma, not even attempting to follow me. The drive home passed in a blur. My house, once filled with Emma's laughter, felt unbearably empty. I wandered from room to room, looking at photographs chronicling our life together. Emma riding her first bike, her high school graduation, the two of us at the Grand Canyon, arms around each other, squinting into the Sunday. In my study, I opened the cedar box containing Catherine's personal effects. Among them was a sealed letter addressed to my child, which Catherine had written during her pregnancy. I had given it to Emma on her 16th birthday. She had returned it to me after reading it, saying it was too precious to risk losing. I gently unfolded the paper, reading Catherine's words. "My dearest child, I do not know if I will be there to watch you grow, but know that my love for you is eternal. Trust your father. He is the best man I have ever known, with a heart bigger than the sky. Let him guide you, even when it seems difficult. He will never lead you astray." Those words crystallized something for me. Enabling Emma's current behavior was not protecting her. The real threat was not my exclusion from the wedding, but what it represented: Emma losing herself in a relationship that was changing her core values. The next morning, I called Sarah, my friend and lawyer, who had helped me establish my business. "Buck, legally speaking, whose name is on these contracts?" she asked after I explained the situation. "Mine. I signed everything and made all payments. Then you have every right to modify or cancel them." I spent that afternoon reviewing each contract, noting cancellation policies and penalties. The spreadsheet I created showed I would lose about 30% of what I had already paid, but the remaining 70% would be refunded. The moral dilemma weighed heavily on me. Was I overstepping by interfering with Emma's wedding, regardless of how hurtful her actions had been? Was this revenge or protection? I made one final attempt to reach Emma, leaving a voicemail expressing my concerns about her relationship and how it was changing her. "I love you too much to just silently watch this happen," I concluded. Her response came via text. "Tyler says, I should not speak to you until after the wedding when you have calmed down. Tyler says, not I think or I feel." Those two words made my decision. I started with the venue, calling the coordinator who had been so helpful throughout the planning process. When I explained that I needed to cancel, her sympathetic tone suggested I was not the first parent to face such a situation. "I am terribly sorry, Mr. Jackson," she said. "Our policy requires 30% retention of the total payment for cancellations within 90 days. "I understand completely," I replied. The catering company was next, followed by the florist, the photographer, the DJ, and the rental company for tables and chairs. Some were more understanding than others. The florist, a mother herself, waived her cancellation fee entirely. "Families are complicated," she said kindly. "I hope you and your daughter find your way back to each other." I meticulously documented every cancellation, keeping receipts for all refunds. Once the process was complete, I transferred the exact amount I had spent on deposits into a new savings account in Emma's name. This was not about punishing her financially. It was about refusing to fund an event from which I had been explicitly banned. When the wedding planner called, clearly confused by vendors reporting cancellations, I was honest. I cannot in good conscience pay for a wedding I am not welcome to attend fully, I explained. Mr. Jackson, this is highly unusual, she stammered. So is being told by your daughter that you are too embarrassing to walk her down the aisle. My voice cracked slightly. I would appreciate if you would not mention my involvement in the cancellations for at least a week. Emma needs time to reflect without anger clouding her judgment. That week was the longest of my life. I gathered documentation of Tyler's concerning behavior, controlling comments he had made in my presence. Screenshots. Emma had once shared of his possessive texts and what I had learned about his financial dishonesty. The confrontation came 3 days before what would have been the wedding date. Emma appeared at my door, her face streaked with tears and contorted with rage. How could you do this? She screamed. Everything is ruined. The venue, the caterers, everything canceled. I let her vent her anger watching, as she paced my living room like a caged animal. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. Come with me, I said, leading her to my office. I showed her the new savings account, with her name containing all the money that had been refunded. This is yours, I explained. I am not keeping a penny. You think money fixes this? She demanded, but some of the fire had left her voice. No, I replied, turning to my computer. But maybe this will help you understand why I did it. I showed her everything I had compiled: Tyler's pattern of isolation tactics, his dishonesty about the wedding finances, the information from his former colleague. Most damning were screenshots of Emma's own texts to me over the past year, showing her gradual personality change. This is who you were, I said, gently showing her an email she had written me during college, full of passion and independent thinking. And this is who you are becoming. I continued playing a video from the venue walkthrough, where she repeatedly looked to Tyler before answering basic questions about her own preferences. Emma sat silently, tears streaming down her face. I would rather lose you temporarily than watch you disappear permanently, I said. If after seeing all this you still choose this path, I will accept it. But I could not fund it without trying to show you what I see. She left without resolving anything, still angry, but visibly shaken. I spent the next 2 weeks in a state of constant anxiety, throwing myself into work to avoid thinking about the immense void in my life. Then one rainy Tuesday evening there was a knock at my door. Emma stood there alone, soaking wet and looking utterly exhausted. Can I come in? She asked in a small voice that reminded me of her childhood. We sat in silence for several minutes, the sound of rain against the windows filling the space between us. Emma looked different somehow, both older and younger simultaneously. You were right about Tyler, she finally said, staring into her mug of tea. When everything fell apart with the wedding, I saw a side of him I had been ignoring. She described his explosive reaction to the cancellations, the verbal abuse she endured when she suggested postponing rather than scrambling for new vendors. He kept saying I needed to make my dad pay literally and figuratively, she continued. When I suggested we could have a smaller wedding within our own means, he said there was no point in getting married if we could not impress the right people. The final revelation came when Emma found emails between Tyler and his friend, discussing how her connection to my construction company could benefit their career aspirations. They were planning to approach you about investing in their marketing startup after the wedding, she said bitterly. Apparently I was just the gateway to your money. I reached across the table and took her hand. I am so sorry, sweetheart. No, Dad. I am the one who should apologize. The things I said to you, the way I treated you. Her voice broke. I do not even recognize that person. We talked for hours. Really talked like we had not done in over a year. I listened as Emma described how gradually Tyler had isolated her from family and friends, always with seemingly reasonable explanations. How he had subtly criticized her background until she became ashamed of it. How his compliments always came with conditions. I kept thinking I was growing, becoming more sophisticated, she admitted. But I was just losing myself. I shared my own regrets about not finding a better way to express my concerns earlier, about perhaps being too permissive with the wedding budget in an attempt to compensate for Catherine's absence. I should have trusted the values I raised you with, I said, instead of just throwing money at the problem. That night marked the beginning of our healing process. Emma moved back home temporarily, needing space from the apartment she had shared with Tyler. She started therapy to understand how she had become so vulnerable to manipulation. 3 months later, we resumed our Sunday breakfast tradition at Millie's Diner, sliding into our old booth as if returning from a long journey. I found an apartment, Emma announced, dipping her toast into her egg yolk, just like she did as a child, and I applied for that marketing position at Rainier Group. I felt a surge of pride watching her reclaim her independence piece by piece. The Emma I knew had always been resilient. "Dad," she said seriously, "I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. It took courage to risk losing me by standing up for what you knew was right." "I was just trying to keep my promise to your mother," I replied. "To protect you even when it was difficult." Emma smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. She would be proud of both of us right now. As we finished our meal, I realized that sometimes love means making painful choices. By canceling the wedding, I had not been punishing Emma, but refusing to participate in something that would ultimately harm her. The temporary pain had prevented a much deeper, longer-lasting damage. Emma is dating again now, cautiously. She brings her dates to family dinners and watches carefully how they interact with me and other family members. She has learned to trust her own judgment again, to recognize when someone truly values her for herself. As for me, I learned that being a parent never stops requiring difficult decisions, that protecting someone sometimes means letting them experience consequences, that love is not about avoiding conflict, but about facing it with honesty and compassion. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect someone you love, even knowing they might hate you for it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Sometimes when we lose what we thought we wanted, we find what we truly need instead. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that the strongest foundations are built not on perfection, but on honesty, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again.